This is the Locked On Jets podcast here on this Sunday. I'm your host, John B. from GangGreenNation.com, here to recap a New York Jets win as the Jets defeat the Houston Texans 30-6 in Week 14. The 5-game losing streak is over. We finally have some good football to talk about. And as much as you or I may say that the best thing for the Jets in the long run is to lose games, you're probably like me. Once the ball gets kicked off, you just want to see the Jets play good football. You just want to see the Jets win. And I'm just really happy for this Jets team right now because it's got to be tough when you go out there and you play bad football week in and week out and you're losing games and you hear nothing but criticism, even if it's justified criticism. It's got to be tough. And there's nobody I feel happier for today than Zach Wilson, who put out what may have been his best performance of his 3-year NFL career in this game. The final stat line, 27 for 36, 301 yards and 2 touchdowns, a passer rating of 117.9. Just an outstanding performance for the young man who clearly had a very difficult week when that story came out. There were questions, the report was that he was reluctant to go back into the lineup. And as more came out through the week, you kind of understood why he was reluctant. First of all, he's been blamed for so much that's gone wrong. Second of all, it's been such a rough season for the Jets. And then a newspaper out of Utah, which covers BYU, reported that Wilson may have been told that he should be expected to be traded during the offseason. Well, he went back out there and he responded to the adversity in the best way possible. It's amazing this game was 0-0 at halftime. And the people who have to feel the worst about this game are the people who took the under, because the under was 33 points. And it was 0-0 at halftime, and the over won. And the big reason the over won was Zach Wilson's performance after the half. And even though the Jets were not scoring points in the first half, I went to halftime feeling like Zach was playing pretty good football. And I even remarked at one point during the first half, it shows you the issues the Jets have on offense where they can get good quarterback play and still put up 0 points in a half. But the second half, it was the Zach Wilson show. He gets my game ball for this week, in part because of everything he dealt with through the week. But in the second half, he really looked like a difference maker in this one. I mean, he was throwing the ball into tight windows. He was making the difference. He was extending plays with his legs. He was evading pressure. I mean, there was one beautiful play down the field where this patented spin move, which has pretty much failed every time he's tried it his first 3 years, actually worked when Mekhi Becton was beaten off the snap. Zach got the ball to his playmakers in this one, and the Jets stars came to play in this one. Breece Hall only had 40 yards on the ground on 10 carries, but he chipped in 8 catches for 86 yards. Garrett Wilson, 9 catches for 108 yards. So Zach knew where to get the ball. Zach got the ball to his 2 best players. But there were other guys who stepped up. Tyler Conklin had a nice game, 4 catches, 57 yards, a couple really nice contested catches. Jeremy Ruckert came to play, 3 catches, 37 yards. Again, a couple nice catches for Ruckert. Xavier Gipson had a touchdown on a 9-yard, you might want to call it a jet sweep. Even Randall Cobb, who's done 0 all season long, contributed to the touchdown in this game. It was like the Jets supporting cast actually looked like a real NFL supporting cast in this one. And the quarterback who has struggled so much, the quarterback who has been so maligned, the quarterback who has faced so much criticism, by the way, much of the criticism deserved. His performance to date has not been super spectacular, but Zach Wilson, this is his day. And I think we all know that this game's not necessarily going to be a game that turns around the Jets' 2023 season. It's probably not going to be a game that turns around Zach Wilson's career, but it's the type of game that's eluded him. Even these other Jets quarterbacks who have failed through the years, whether you're talking Sanchez, whether you're talking Sam Darnold, they've had great moments. And I can't think of many great Zach Wilson games through his career. I mean, there have been moments where there have been stretches within a game. There's maybe been a quarter where he's looked really good or a half where he's looked really good. And look, I mean, the Jets did score 0 points in the first half, but I thought he played a complete game in this one. And even when the Jets were struggling to score points in that first half, I don't think it was Zach. I just think the offensive line was struggling. I think Nathaniel Hackett's play calling in the first half was a little shaky. It seemed like Zach was making mostly the right reads. I mean, the only issue with Zach in this game was his work in the pocket. Sometimes he was maybe taking a sack or two he shouldn't have. And then in the second half, he did have the fumble, which kind of set up Houston's only points of the game. But other than that, I mean, really stellar performance. This was almost like a better version of his Kansas City game. After the Kansas City game, I said that it was one of the rare times in his 3 years with the Jets that I felt like I saw Zach Wilson elevate his teammates. They're the quarterbacks who can hit the open pass. They're the quarterbacks who can take what's there. But there aren't many quarterbacks in this league who can elevate their teammates. And I don't know if Zach Wilson can do this on a consistent basis, but Zach Wilson elevated the Jets in this game. In my view, Zach Wilson helped carry the Jets to a victory. This was the Zach Wilson show. And, after the week he's had, it must feel really good for him. It must be something that just makes him so happy because it's been so rough watching this bad football. And I'll say it again. I mean, I think we all know deep down that maybe it's better for the Jets to lose these games in the long run, but you just want to feel good on a Sunday night, don't you? That's how I feel. I'm sure you feel that way too. Like even if you felt like maybe for draft position or for some other reason it's better for the Jets to lose, you just want to feel good. You want to feel like the Jets played well. You want to watch good football, and that's what we watched in this game. Zach Wilson, the star for the Jets in this one, but there were other stars. This was probably the most complete Jets performance of the season. And as we continue here on this Sunday edition of Locked On Jets, we're going to talk about some of the other guys who helped carry the Jets to victory over the Houston Texans. This episode of Locked On Jets is brought to you by DoorDash. We are celebrating a Jets win today. We haven't had many of those to enjoy lately, so why not treat yourself to a great dinner by DoorDash? There are a lot of great restaurants in New York, and you can have a Dasher bring your food right to you. One great restaurant you can look to is Burano. Former Ruberoso chef Albert Demiglio opened this South Williamsburg restaurant in 2016 with a menu tailored to invoke the kinds of dishes his grandmother cooked for the family. His calling card is fresh mozzarella, handmade daily and served smoked or salted with extra virgin olive oil. And he prepares Old Country giardiniera, spicy pickled cauliflower, onion, celery, and more that can go on anything, notably a burger with mozzarella. That's just one of the many great options for you that DoorDash can deliver food from if you live in the New York area or anywhere else. DoorDash delivers all across the country. And right now, you can get 50% off up to a $10 value when you spend $15 or more on your first order when you download the DoorDash app and enter code LOCKED23. Subject to change, terms apply. Again, that's 50% off up to a $10 value when you spend $15 or more on your first order when you download the DoorDash app and enter code LOCKED23. It's one word with no space, LOCKED, number 2, number 3. Subject to change, terms apply. This episode of Locked On Jets is brought to you by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. It's the easiest and most exciting way to play DFS. It's just you against the numbers. Instead of battling thousands of other players, including pros and sharks, you pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. And with the basketball season here, you can now pick combo projections across football and basketball from the Specials League. This is a league created specifically for combo projections that include 2 or more players from different sports or leagues. For example, LeBron James plus Travis Kelce, you can pick out a 10.5 combo of 3-pointers made and receptions. And this week on PrizePicks, you could just do the regular selections. If you had picked Zach Wilson for more than one passing touchdown, you could have won big. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match of up to $100. Again, go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match of up to $100 using PrizePicks. This is the Locked On Jets podcast here on this Sunday. We're breaking down a New York Jets victory as the Jets beat the Houston Texans 30-6 at MetLife Stadium. If you picked the over, you won, even though the game was scoreless at halftime. So congratulations to all the bettors out there who probably thought they were in trouble at halftime. But more importantly, the Jets won, and the Jets improved their record to 5-8 on the season. Is it the start of a turnaround? I mean, probably not. I guess we can all hope. Is it the start of a turnaround for Zach Wilson's career? Again, we can hope. I don't know if it really is, but what I can say is this was the best Jets performance of the season. Every other Jets game that they've won, it's felt like they've had fortune along the way. They had that comeback against Buffalo, the comeback against Philadelphia, that crazy finish against the Giants, even the game against Denver. It felt like they should have put the Broncos away. It never felt like that game should have come down to the end of the fourth quarter. This was a game the Jets went out and dominated, especially in the second half. The second half was the most complete half of football by far the Jets have played all season long. Really, the only shaky stretch there was the Zach Wilson fumble on the scramble. And then I think that maybe the defense was a little shell-shocked after that because they gave up some big plays. They allowed a touchdown. But outside of that, it was a very complete performance by the New York Jets. The defense dominated through the whole game. The offense, was the Jets' offense in the first half. In the second half, they found life. And the defense really did help them out because the last 9 Jets points, the Jets scored 3 touchdowns on their own in that second half. The last 9 points were 3 field goals that were essentially set up by the Jets defense getting stops deep in Houston territory, left the Jets in field goal range without much work to do. In fact, a couple of those drives, the Jets had negative yards, but really a complete performance by the New York Jets. They took advantage of the issues the Houston Texans had. A couple of key players out, Tank Dell, top young receiver for them, Dalton Schultz, their tight end, were out. Jets defense needs to take care of business in that event, and they did. They held the Texans off the board in the first half. and they allowed the Jets offense to get going in the second half. A game where you don't score points in the first half on offense, you probably are going to be behind most of the time. And the Jets defense really stood tall in the first half. They kept the team in the game until the point where the Jets offense could take over. And as I said, like on offense, the Stars carried it. Garrett Wilson over 100 yards in this game. Breece Hall over 100 yards from scrimmage in this game. So the two go-to guys were go-to guys in this game. A lot of criticism from Breece Hall in recent weeks. I don't think there's going to be much criticism from Breece Hall in this game, but the Jets even got contributions from their supporting parts. As I mentioned, Xavier Gibson scored a touchdown. Randall Cobb actually made an appearance and scored a touchdown. Jets got some contributions from their tight ends, Tyler Conklin and Jeremy Ruckert. But on the defensive side of the ball, I think almost everybody played well. And I'll start with Quinnen Williams, who's once again having a Pro Bowl caliber season, records a sack, draws a penalty, just looks great out there. Bryce Huff constantly causing disruptions. In fact, probably should have drawn a couple holding penalties. The refs did not throw the flag a couple times. He had a sack in this game. He had a couple pressures. Number should have been even better, if not for some pretty blatant holding calls that Houston got away with. And the back end of this Jets defense, they did the job. Again, when the other team's missing key receivers, you expect this Jets defense to go out there and take advantage of that. You expect them to go out there and throttle the other team's offense. And that's exactly what they did. Sauce Gardner, DJ Reed, Michael Carter II, just playing great coverage all game long. CJ Mosley and Quincy Williams were in the mix a lot. I thought they both played very strong games. They were in the middle of a lot of plays in this game. It's the type of performance you expect the Jets defense to have against a rookie quarterback. In the preview show, I mentioned how CJ Stroud may not be used to windows that are going to close as fast as they will with this Jets defense, in part because they don't blitz a lot. So you face a lot of loaded coverage units, a lot of seven-man coverage units. So the passing windows usually aren't as big with those guys in there. But also the Jets have a lot of speed on defense, and those guys can close those windows very quickly. And you can tell it bothered CJ Stroud. You could tell Houston early in the game, I felt like was pass protecting, but the Jets pass rush eventually heated it up. It just felt like CJ Stroud was having one of those games. We've seen plenty of them through the years with Jets rookie quarterbacks where the Jets made the guy who probably will be the rookie of the year look like a rookie in this one. There aren't many defenses who have done that to CJ Stroud this year. Jets defense really did the work. And then Greg Zuerlein, a couple field goals in the fourth quarter to help ice the game, pretty much put it away, get the score up to 3 scores. A really complete performance by the New York Jets, the kind of performance that's been lacking all season long. Even in a lot of the games the Jets have won, I did not come away feeling like the Jets played great football. This was a great performance by the New York Jets. They got to be very happy with how they've played. And it feels good to have a Sunday night you can enjoy, doesn't it? It feels good to have a Sunday night where your team won, where your team played really well. And it's just going to make the rest of the week go much easier. And in this rest of the week, we'll have plenty of episodes. Again, this is a daily podcast covering the New York Jets. We'll have a new episode tomorrow with a fuller recap. Until then, this has been the Locked On Jets podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So our motto, as always, if you enjoy the show, hit the subscribe button where you're watching or listening so that you'll never miss an episode. If you're watching on YouTube and enjoy the show, please give it a big thumbs up. If you're listening on a podcast source and then enjoy the show, give it a 5-star review. We'll be back tomorrow. We'll have a fuller recap. Until then, enjoy the night and enjoy this Jets victory over the Houston Texans.